It wasn't until they thought I was going to die that they started sharing my things. My name is Almudena Fernández. I'm 72 years old, and I never thought I'd end up recording something like this. All my life, I believed I had a close family, not perfect, but a family that loved me. I was that mother who gave everything. I worked cleaning houses, sewing clothes, and taking care of the elderly so that my children would never lack a hot meal. While they were growing up, I was getting smaller. I stopped buying clothes. I stopped going out. I even stopped thinking about myself, and I didn't regret it, or so I thought. When my husband died 8 years ago, the house was empty. At first, my children came over a lot. They called me, hugged me, asked if I needed anything. But over time, everything changed. The visits became shorter. Then I only received messages. Then silence. I kept justifying it. They're busy. Life is hard these days. Young people live fast. Until one day I fell in the kitchen. It wasn't serious, but I stayed on the floor for almost an hour because no one was answering the phone. As I stared at the ceiling, I thought something that broke my soul. If I die here, it will take days for them to find me. That night, I cried like a little girl. Not for the blow, not for the pain. I cried because I felt like I had become invisible. And then I did something terrible. I decided to put them to the test. A week later, I gathered my children at home. I made croquettes, tortilla, and flan, just like when they were little. They came because I told them I had something important to tell them. I remember their faces around the table perfectly. My son looking at his phone, my daughter in a hurry. My daughter-in-law talking about diets. I took a deep breath and lied. The doctors think I have cancer. There was immediate silence. My daughter started to cry. My son hugged me tightly. My daughter-in-law held my hand and said, "You won't go through this alone." And for a few seconds, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, importance, some affection. That night, they stayed with me longer. They said they would help me, that they would look out for me. And I went to sleep thinking that maybe there was still love left. But 2 days later, I heard something behind a door that destroyed me forever. My son had come with his wife to keep me company. They thought I was asleep in the room, but I got up to get a drink of water and heard their voices in the kitchen. Then I heard the phrase, "I will never forget. We will have to see what we do with the house." I felt horribly cold inside. My daughter-in-law replied, "Your sister will surely want to sell it fast." I froze. They didn't talk about caring for me, about treatment, or spending time with me. They were talking about my inheritance. I remained still behind the door while I listened to them divide my life into percentages. I paid for that house by cleaning doorways and spending entire nights sewing clothes. My children grew up there. I buried half my life there. And to them, it was already money. My daughter arrived a few minutes later and started talking about a nursing home. If mom gets worse, she will be better cared for there. Cared for? That word made me cry silently. I didn't want a nursing home. I didn't want luxury. I didn't want money. I just wanted to feel loved. That night, I barely slept. I kept looking at old photos of when my children were little. Birthdays, Christmases, afternoons at the beach. And I wondered at what point we stopped being a family. But I continued with the lie, because I needed to know how far it all went. The following week was strange. Suddenly, everyone was calling me. My son visited me more. My granddaughter wrote me loving messages. Even my daughter-in-law started bringing me food. But something didn't add up. There were too many questions about the bank, about paperwork, about deeds. One Sunday, I pretended to fall asleep on the couch while they talked in the kitchen. And then I heard my daughter say, "Mom always wanted to leave me Grandma's jewelry." My son replied, "We'll have to talk about that." That broke me completely. I was still alive, and they were already arguing about my earrings. That day, I understood something very painful. There are people who don't miss you. They miss what you gave them. And then I heard something even worse, Alilis, something that made me make a definitive decision. One night, my son came home alone and told me he wanted to spend time with me. We had dinner together, and for a moment, I felt that maybe there was still something left of that little boy who hugged me tightly when he was scared. But after dinner, he got a call. He went out to the terrace thinking that I wasn't listening. And there, behind the curtain, I heard him say, "Yes, I don't think he has much longer." I felt like I was short of breath. Then he added, "The important thing is to fix the paperwork before my sister starts causing problems." The paperwork, not their mother, not my pain, not my fear, the paperwork. That night I understood that my fake illness had uncovered a very real truth. My children no longer saw me as a person. They saw me as a pending farewell. And for the first time in many years, I got angry, not sadness, not disappointment, rage, for all the times I sacrificed myself, for all the sleepless nights, for all The times I put their lives before mine. And while they were talking about inheritance, I was still here, breathing, feeling, listening to everything. So I made a decision. I was going to teach them the greatest lesson of their lives. The following week, I met them at home again. This time I didn't make flan or croquettes. I just wanted to put an end to that lie. When the doctors arrived in the living room, they were serious, as if they were expecting bad news. And then I said, the doctors were wrong. They look confused. I don't have cancer. The silence was absolute. My daughter opened her eyes. My son's eyes went white. And I kept talking before they could react, but I did discover something much worse. No one said a word. So I looked at them one by one and told them everything I had heard behind closed doors. The conversations about the house, the jewelry, the residence, the money. My daughter began to cry. My son said, Mom, it's not what it seems, but it was too late because there are wounds that don't heal when you ask for forgiveness. That afternoon, I finished talking, and for the first time in years, no one had an answer. My son lowered his head. My daughter cried silently, and I looked at them feeling something very strange. It wasn't hatred. It was tiredness. The tiredness of a woman who had spent her whole life trying to be enough for everyone. My daughter tried to hug me. Mom, forgive us, Mom. But she took a step back. And then I told them something I never thought I would have the courage to say, oh, I don't need you to love me when you think I'm going to die. I needed you to love me when I was still alive. My son started to cry for real. I think he understood at that moment the damage they had done to me. But I had already changed, because for weeks I listened to them talk about me as if I no longer existed, and that killed something inside. I explained to them that I didn't plan on kicking them out of my life, but that things would never be the same again. And so it was. From that day on, I stopped living only for others. I started going out more. I signed up for painting classes. I went back to having breakfast in the cafeteria, reading quietly. I even made new friends. For the first time in decades, I thought about myself. My children still come to see me. Sometimes I notice guilt in their eyes. Other times they try to compensate for the damage with gifts or attention. But now I understood something important. Love shouldn't only appear when someone is about to disappear. Today I'm recording this video because I know that there are many older people who feel invisible within their own families. People who gave their whole lives and now live waiting for a call that almost never comes. And I want to tell you something. Don't beg for love. Don't give up. For anyone, don't give your whole life forgetting about yourself. Because one day you wake up and discover that you've spent years surviving for people who barely looked at you. Yes, the truth is it hurt a lot. Hearing my children talk about my heritage while I was still alive broke my heart, but it also freed me, because from that day on I stopped living deceived. And although it sounds sad, sometimes losing the perfect image of your family is the first step to finding yourself again. So if you're watching this, tell me something in the comments. What would you have done in my place? I send a kiss to everyone who has watched my story until the end. I love you all.